Welcome to News Laundry Chhota Hafta. For the full episode, subscribe because it is behind the paywall and only subscribers get access to uncut, complete content. News Laundry Hafta is our weekly wrap of all that made the news, all that didn't, and all that should have and all that shouldn't have. We agree, we disagree, we critique, and occasionally we beat each other up. But it's all good fun. Subscribe.
This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़ लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी माफ़ नहीं करते. Remember, when the public pays, the public is served, and when advertisers pay, advertisers served. Support to keep media independent and free. Please subscribe to News Laundry. All you Mufat khors who listen to Chhota Hafta, listening to the Bada Hafta also. Joining us today on the panel, Madhu is still not in town. We have Anand Vardhan, one of our most brilliant original thinkers and writers.
Soft-spoken as well.
Soft-spoken. Anand Ranganathan, the roguish gunda who pretends he's not.
My reputation precedes me.
तेरी reputation को मैं
Like
बर्बाद
James
ना
Bond.
कर दूँ ना, मेरा नाम है निक्कू नहीं. And our very own Manisha Pandey, whose piece I hope you've read. I'm Abhinandan Sekhri. And on the phone line with us is Siddharth Vardarajan, founding editor of The Wire. Before he started The Wire with M.K. Venu and Siddharth Bhatia, he was editor at Hindu. He's won the Ramnath Goenka Award, Journalist of the Year. He's taught economics at NYU and journalism at the University of California, Berkeley. And he's also edited a book which is about, wait for it, 2002 Gujarat riots, titled Gujarat, The Making of a Tragedy. Thank you for joining us, Siddharth. The things to discuss today are the raids on NDTV that we'll start off with. Then we have, Trump walking out of the Paris Climate Agreement. We have a short discussion, hopefully, on what's happening in Madhya Pradesh with the farmers dying in police firing, as it now appears. And also The Wire's beef with Times Now and Arnab and why they find their way into getting bashed every now and then on their prime time. That and lots more. Sid, do you want to go with something that was spectacularly good or bad in the media this week? Or should we first ask you about why you are making primetime news as in The Wire every other week?
Ask me anything.
Okay, so I read the piece, the General Dyer piece. That is what was the primetime debate on Times Now and Republic. Am I right? Or were there any more? Have I missed anyone?
I got a call from Newsec saying they wanted to debate it, but that they were planning to, but they wanted to reach out to Partho Chatterjee. But I don't know if they finally did it because I don't make a habit of watching these channels, quite frankly.
Right. So far be it from me to assume that one piece in a publication is the voice of the publication. Considering at News Laundry we are disagreeing with each other so much. But in your view, is that a fair comparison or an unfair comparison?
No, I think we have to understand what is the comparison that he was making, right? So Partho Chatterjee, a lot of people have either willfully or out of ignorance assumed or spoken as if Partho Da is comparing the incident of Jallianwala Bagh, in other words, the killing of more than 300 people, which he describes in vivid detail at the start of his article, with the Human Shield incident involving Major Litul Gogoi. Whereas what he's comparing is not the incident itself, but the rationalization of the use of, the logic of military necessity and what it tells us about how somebody who invokes that logic feels about the people that he's dealing with. So essentially, he was comparing the testimony of General Dyer before the Hunter Commission and the interview that General Rawat gave to PTI, and drawing what he felt were disturbing similarities in terms of the logic and approach of these two generals. And I think it was a fair comparison. It was very, soberly stated, and he perhaps more than once went out of his way to say that he's not comparing the motives of the two generals. He says, in fact, it would be unfair to say General Rawat is driven by the same consideration as General Dyer. So you have a scholar making an argument, a historical argument, going out of his way to write it in such a way that what he says should not be misconstrued. But then people willfully or deliberately or out of ignorance have misconstrued what he wrote.
So let me throw that to the panel. Do you think one can draw in a comparison like this and not expect what that person is most well known for to be the overwhelming context of the entire discussion? Who do you want to go? Manisha, Anand, Ranga or Vardhan? Who wants to go with this first?
Yeah, I read the piece,
Okay.
and I mean, firstly, let me say that the author and Wire had complete, in my opinion, it was completely justified to publish it. It's a freedom of expression. They can, and
Yeah, because this is saying in the context of a lot of people say that why did they publish it?
Yeah, exactly. You know,
Right.
because I mean, a lot of the discussion, in fact, most of the discussion, how the hell should this piece be published? So that's absolutely preposterous. And also, it is a fact that Siddharth agrees, being the editor, he agrees with the piece. But even if he didn't, I for one feel he should have published it,
Right.
which is fine. So let's get that out of the way. Second thing, personally, I found the rationale. So basically, it was not, as Siddharth correctly put it, it was not the comparison between what happened at Jallianwala Bagh, but rather the rationale that General Dyer gave with what the Indian Army did. I, having read the piece and having read the rebuttal of Makar and Panachpe that I think was published in DNA and in Delio as well, I found the rationale comparison preposterous, and I'll explain to you why. You see, Partha was not the first person to actually bring this rationale. Interestingly, it was brought into the public domain about 2 weeks ago or maybe 3 weeks ago by, I forget the name, he's another Wire columnist, I think Omar Ahmed.
Is that right, Omar Ahmed?
So he tweeted, he had a tweet thread where he was the first one, according to me, he brought forth this rationale. I think he's the same person who said RSS ideologues should not be invited to the Jaipur literature. I mean, he wrote a piece on that. Then he also said, if you have a problem with my religion, then not me, but you are the bigot. So, and then he said the General Dyer thing. So at that point of time as well, I understood that he's not talking of the massacre, but rather the rationale. And it has been rebutted. I mean, obviously you cannot compare, and especially if you look at your interview with Lieutenant General Panag, the News Laundry interview,
Yes.
where I also, I verbatim quoted him, made a transcript of it.
Right.
Says, had this been brought to my knowledge, it is a non-SOP. It is not a standard operating procedure.
Right. And you would have...
And I would have, I would have said, this will not happen
You
again.
would have positioned your response
So
accordingly.
this has never happened before. And I don't know, but I'm hoping that this would not happen again. And if you go by we are all going by the person who was tied to the jeep is saying that, he was innocent. The other version also has to be, we don't know which one is the truth, but the army is saying he was not innocent, he was stone pelter. And as it transpired, the events did not lead to any loss of life. It in fact led the people to escape a mob or whatever it is. So I think the comparison or the rationale which this psychopathic murderer General Dyer gave with this event, or the people who, I wouldn't say sanctioned it, because it was just a spur of the moment thing, but so that is what I think.
Regarding these raids, because we're going to be discussing that in a little more detail after you're gone with just the News Laundry panel, the CBI raids, what is your problem with it, and why? Do you think there's the merits and demerits of it? If you think there are two sides, or you don't think there are two sides, what is your position on this?
No, I think it's there's no doubt in my mind that this is malified. This is vindictive. It's a vendetta. This is action which seems completely out of proportion with the stated offense that is being investigated. And as more and more details are emerging and people are passing the FIR, even those who were initially saying that, well, the CBI may after all have a case, are now, reflecting and feeling that, well, things don't look so solid or robust after all. So I think that, more details of this will emerge. But for a supposed loss of 48 crore, the fact that they go after a company, I think it would not have happened if NDTV was not a media company.
Sure.
And if NDTV was not the kind of media company that it is.
Anand sir, Ranga uncle.
Yeah, see, I think this story has made me think quite a lot, and I'll tell you why. Because it has delved into an area which I normally hate, which is grey. So I've had to think about this, and I'll explain to you why.
Because I saw your tweets on the first day.
On 3 or 4.
I haven't seen them yesterday.
3 or 4 angles. First is, as far as morally, ethically, I find NDTV to be one of the most corrupt organizations. And it is not just the fact that I've made this view over the past week or past day or something. I've made this view factually or otherwise. It's like, you watch your son growing up. So I have watched NDTV grow up over the last 10 years. It's not like one event happens and you can comment on it. This is 24/7. So you get an opportunity to look at the irrationality of the logic with which they criticize things or which they praise things. So it is the atmospherics, which is a word that a lot of NDTV journalists like using. The atmospherics of NDTV is that it's morally and ethically, according to me, again I stress, one of the most corrupt organizations. Now, as far as financially is concerned, I am in no position to comment, except to make a view on whether the government is going after them, which is precisely the question, or about the press freedom, or should it or not. Now, why is this grey? It is grey because if anybody, a law enforcer, sees something unlawful, or it is brought to that person's notice, like a police station, you launch an FIR, okay, and then you try and investigate. Now, the problem is, that is entirely a legal process, and that has to happen. You cannot deny, you cannot say that, look, you're not doing it to that person. See, unequal application of law is not a defense.
Right.
Ambani ko chhod rakha hai, Adani ko chhod rakha hai, mujhe kyun pakda hua hai tumne? So that's one thing. Now, why is it grey? Because I've been shouting from the rooftops ever since Jaitley and others made a promise, as you remember, India Against Corruption 2011, that they will make CBI independent. And they haven't. Also Lokpal. Okay. So when you have an organization which is a caged parrot, only thing that has changed is the shoulder. Earlier it was UPA shoulder, now it is NDA shoulder. On what basis can you say that this cannot be, on what basis can you be absolutely certain that this is not a vendetta?
Not motivated, sure enough.
At the same time, somebody has to investigate.
Right.
So you cannot just say, look, this, it's like stuck in the middle, and this is grey for me. So I want things to be investigated, but at the same time, I cannot be certain that this is not a vendetta.
But before I get to Manisha, just one question. When you say you find it ethically and morally the most corrupt, as compared to who?
Oh, no. I mean, I'm not saying it is the most. I'm saying one of the. And let me add here.
So which one would you say is not? I mean, if
all
we go
of
by
them
networks.
All of them
so
are.
So would you say it's an outlier among them, or is it as good as the rest, or is it an outlier? Now the firing in Madhya Pradesh. I just saw Rahul Kamal's tweet, and no matter what people say about journalists, if I'm to go on Twitter, I'll still go by journalists because they are at some level accountable. He has tweeted that the Madhya Pradesh government has finally acknowledged that it was police firing after for the first 2 days saying the police didn't do the firing. Those 5 farmers were killed by some rogue element firing. I know a few channels did take this up. Times now completely went on another tangent. Is Congress politicizing it?
Oh my God, they do that all the time.
I want to talk about any party taking up any issue that affects the Indian. Like this whole, I've written a piece on this. I'll use Anand Ranga's line. That, what do you mean by politicizing? A political party will take up an issue that is political. And this is a political issue. It impacts people.
I know, man. I'm so tired of this. Of course, they will politicize it. Yeah, Rahul Gandhi, Congress, kya karengi? Matlab, it's so obvious. And what do politicians do? They politicize and you call them to politicize
See, the
issues.
other thing that has happened over the last 24 hours is that a lot of BJP spokespersons have brought out this statistics saying that in Congress times in Madhya Pradesh, under Digvijay Singh, so many farmers were fired at, 18 farmers were killed. In Maharashtra, 5 farmers were killed and all. Now, this is where I have a problem. And, this is where you can say, this is where I say that whataboutery is a cerebral exercise. It should not be dismissed per se. Now, many people would say this is whataboutery. Now, the point is you have a bloody government. You came to power to ensure that you will not do the same mistakes as your previous government was doing. Now, you can't, stretch this argument and say that, look, those guys did this, so we are going to do this. Having said that, I do not know the exact situation on the ground and, what kind of violence or violent the protests, became. I think I've seen some visuals of, buses being burnt and things of that sort. So I would like to get, an objective police person's version as to did the situation really merit this or what actually, how badly did it go out of control?
All right. So I do hope you enjoyed this hafta. Write in with your comments. Leave the abuse in the Twitter timelines. So do join us again. Write in with your critique on contact@newslaundry.com. Thank you for joining us. And remember, pay to keep news free, because when the public pays, the public is served.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sun liya Afrika, mufat khoron. Not to brag or anything, but News Laundry Hafta features in the top 50 in the world on SoundCloud in the news and politics category for podcasts. So do subscribe and see what you're missing, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Subscribe, help keep news independent and free. All News Laundry podcasts are available on iTunes and Stitcher and any other podcast platform.